Take us off, Ira.
All right. We just decided who's going to start. It's me. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. We're holding this panel on the evolution of NFTs to 2.0. I'm here with my colleagues. We have a project called Tree Trunk, and that originated out of Consensus Mesh. And I work on the legal tech, and I'll let Andreas and John introduce themselves. And our co-panelists right here will be demonstrating today why we accidentally got put together, but why, when we build in parallel, we find synergies. So shortly you're going to see that even though we're talking about a brand new NFT platform, their technology and identity fits perfectly with what we're doing. So with that, John, I'll pass it on to you.
Good morning, everybody. Wow, that's louder than Ira. Who's here as a developer? Who has been a developer before blockchain? They were into blockchain. Who here are good at distributed systems? All right. Distributed systems is a thing. Zero-knowledge cryptography is a thing. Some of the basics of blockchain technology are a thing, sort of. But let's be clear. Up until now, and we all know it, NFTs are a grift. Crypto is a grift. Centralized finance, also a grift. We're awash in bullshit in this world in 2022, and we all know it. So why are we working on blockchain? Why are we working on NFTs? Well, we'd like to unstupid it a little bit. And Andreas and I and some others working on a project called the Baseline Protocol, which is a crypto, basically a standards body, not a coin, not a token, not a scheme, not a company, a standards body for zero-knowledge cryptography in industry, which is a good idea and doesn't require you to suspend your disbelief about basic computing in order to be a thing that works. Let's be clear. Coin go up, as we all have experienced recently. It go down. And the people that got rich fast are on the backs of 10 other people that got poor faster. And I don't like that business model, and I bet a lot of you don't either. So here we are with treetrunk.io, which we've been working on, at least in a small way, to change the business model for artists. You hear about, oh, let's empower artists, let's make it decentralized. Come on, we all know. Decentralized is very centralized. Decentralized is the most centralizing power in the internet is largely decentralized. It scales because it just passes packets. It doesn't have to maintain state. When you maintain state, you don't scale. You don't, it's just a bad pattern. And by the way, never put your data on a blockchain. Blockchains are digital nudist colonies. A private blockchain is just a digital nudist colony on a private beach. And when you hear some of these other projects saying, well, we're fast and we got TPS, and I'm waiting for them to say, we're on Mongo chain. The developers in the room will laugh at that, right? You know, databases still are a thing. Ultimately, the blockchain, public blockchain, will have one good use: the internet's ordering and hash management service. That's a thing we need. It's useful, and it could probably scale to do that. But to be the back end of everybody's application, terrible, terrible idea, right? So based on those principles, we built treetrunk.io, and treetrunk.io allows artists to get as close to decentralization as possible, where not even our platform has control of your art at the end of, you can embed your art, your asset directly from IPFS into any website in the world. And by the way, websites, not marketplaces, are how you do this, right? We talk about decentralization. And then we talk about how you have to be on OpenSea or on Coinbase's marketplace, and you have to do deals with them, and then they have to do bilateral arrangements to make the money work between them because they're on marketplace protocols like Wyvern. We said, no, every piece of art is its own mini DAO. And it's based on a new standard that Andreas, Freund, and others on the team have submitted to the Ethereum Foundation called EIP 4910, draft standard. Draft standard. So if you're a developer interested in the next generation of 721s, this is 721 compliant, but adds a bunch of stuff. It's really heavy because doing royalty distribution and collection not only to artists, but to their collectors as well, is an interesting thing. So in other words, with a tree trunk 4910, you can list your art, create up to 10 prints. So think of it like lithography. Each of those under zero knowledge are verifiably children of the original, even if the original is not displayed or out there. Each of them can have a right, based on what the creator allowed, to make up to 10 reprints of their own, and so on down 4 generations. 4 generations is to avoid things like MLM and bad guys using the system for pyramiding, right? So, but you're putting an artist at the top of a titrating tree of royalties, and their collectors are cut in on the deal. We think that's a pretty good idea because artists don't want to spend all their time being marketers, and wouldn't it be nice if their best followers and collectors and influencers were doing the job for them because they're getting money for it. They can build their royalty empires below the artist.
So
that's what Tree Trunk is. And,
yeah. All right. So I want to bring JP and Israel in, and I'll give a little segue right here because this happened completely accidentally. But one of the things in trying to evolve NFTs was we saw, and if this is one thing, there's many things that folks will be learning at this conference. I'm learning all the time, but this is very, very important, and it transcends the platform we're talking about today. There's something in the current state of NFTs called the consent bug, and that basically means when people buy NFTs, they're not just buying the artwork, or they're basically licensing the artwork. But the problem is that folks don't have great visibility into what the actual licensing agreement is. And so a really great example of that is somebody goes ahead and they buy a membership NFT, and they have a piece of artwork associated with it. But they don't find out until after the fact that you got to be 18 or older to actually get in, or 21 and older, or from a particular set of countries. And that's called the consent management bug. In regular e-commerce, the rule is clear and conspicuous notice and consent. Now, when you go to a lot of these other platforms, you'll be lucky if you see any kind of license agreement or rules for the NFT. I'm not talking about the platform rules. I'm saying what rules are there for that NFT? With Bored Apes, most of the time you got to go to their website. Well, we fixed that consent management bug in our NFT technology on Tree Trunk. And Andreas created a brilliant, basically like a can label. When you go to the NFT landing page, it's like a label on a can. You get full disclosure, you get the full metadata, you get the full description, but in human readable form. And on there are the licensing terms. And that is tethered to the blockchain. And so if you want to go ahead and have really good consent management, Tree Trunk is your answer. But if you want to have really good identity management, so you know who the folks are who are behind it, and that could be win-win. Consumers could love that. It helps them say, hey, listen, I'm the real owner. And IP owners love that because they know friend from foe when people are manifesting artwork. And we have on the panel today JP, who works for one of the premier identity technology companies on the blockchain.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
I will pass that on over to, I'm not getting paid for that, by the way. And I'm going to hand it over to JP to describe the technology and the serendipity that would happen today.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah. So, hey guys, I'm JP, I'm the Chief Product Officer for Civic. Civic has been in the identity space for a little while. We've been around since 2016. We have a token, and we're building on-chain access management for Web3 platforms, basically. So if you guys want to make sure that your programs, your smart contracts, know who they are interacting with, that wallet, you can work with someone like Civic. So Civic would do any kind of verification. It can be something as simple as complete a CAPTCHA that represents that there was a human person there, all the way through doing liveness checks, doing one-to-many and uniqueness checks, or the more traditional identity document verification, sanctions checks, and all those things that some people call KYC that are not that interesting sometimes for a lot of us. But all those pieces are really important in order to really know who is interacting with your platform. And when you think about NFTs and how that then becomes, okay, what is the license, who's behind it, provenance, who was the creator of that NFT? There's all these different pieces that then will give you all the right breadcrumbs so you can go back and figure out, okay, this is who this is, or this is who is allowed to access the platform. And like you said, right, you don't want to store a lot of that information on chain either. So we don't store any kind of PII on chain. That's never going to be a good idea, at least with what we know, with the technology that's available to us. So we would issue a token to that wallet. And for us, it's a cross-chain world. We know consumers want choice. They want to be on an Ethereum chain. They want to be on an EVM, or they want to be on Solana, Near, whatever it is. So they need to have one identity. Some people would like to use DIDs and whatnot to do all of that, verifiable credentials behind the scenes for those that are familiar with all the standards that are trying to get pushed through, but unfortunately not everything has been approved just yet. It's a big thing that we're working through right now in order to be able to have all that. So with all those pieces, I think now developers have all the right tools to build those robust systems and platforms that will, I think, enable that next generation of NFTs.
JP, thank you very much. And that leads us to Israel and then Andreas. Israel is one of the brightest minds in the blockchain space. He's sitting in the middle on purpose between two different technologies. So Israel, we'd like to get your thoughts on what you heard today.
Over the last, I don't know when John first started talking to me about tree trunk, but maybe 8 months ago, you think, John? So it was the initial part of the idea, using this ZK proof parentage system. It inspired a lot of thoughts that I think really haven't been covered yet in this conversation. The ability of a person to mint an NFT and then have the rights to a stream of royalties going down through a shared system of parentage has a lot of ramifications, especially, and he did cover this on the site in the little tutorial video for Tree Trunk before it came out about gaming and these other ways in which it'll be profitable. So as we move into this next stage, into this what some would call the fourth industrial revolution, AI and robots are going to take away a lot of jobs. Play to earn, learn to earn, socialize to earn are going to become things. People have spent hours and hours playing video games to no greater effect to their lives. And in the future, that will be changed. And there needs to be a system where you can keep the items that you love and still be able to utilize them for some type of model of profit to benefit you.
Do we change the word video games to video work at that point?
Man, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's still a game. I think that consumers. So in the fourth industrial revolution, a lot of the writings. So in this age right now, if we see the model of PayPal or Coinbase or any of these, they're paying their customers because their customer is the most important part of the equation. The user on social media is the most important part of the equation, and yet they don't benefit from the utilization of these platforms or the playing of these games or the promotion of these games. And hopefully in the future, that will change, and I'm looking forward to Tree Trunk being a part of that.
Thank you, Israel. And now that leads us to Andreas, who is the author of the EIP 4910, a brilliant technologist and programmer, and that will be the last time I say that this trip. And,
Not true.
And also a co-founder with John, I, and Andreas. And by the way, we also have Richard and Serena, who are not up here, who are also co-founders with us, as well as Terrence. And Terrence is also a very brilliant engineer who's worked with Andreas. So Andreas, without further ado, if you could tell us what you think the greatest benefit to this technology is that you built.
So first of all, I would like to thank my fellow panelists here because they have highlighted the technical complexities and dimensions, the business and legal aspects, and the social aspects of this mosaic, which is the distributed computing world in 2022. So I hope you appreciate the complexities that this displays. Now, bringing this all together, and that's why we're here, we're talking about NFT 2.0 and evolving standards, right? And standards, very important. That's why I want to give a big shout out to William, because without this foundational work that he and his compatriots did, we would not be here today on this panel, right? The ERC 721 and then the compatriot extensions. So 1155 and now the draft standard 4910 are using the 721 as a building block. Without the building block, this wouldn't exist. The internet wouldn't exist without TCP/IP as its foundational building block. Getting geeky here for a second, all right? So standards, TCP/IP is standardized. It took a big while to get there, but eventually did. And then Microsoft, by putting it into Windows 95, forced everyone to adopt it. So we're past that world. So what is really important for NFT 2.0 is bringing standards together, right? Vinny is the CEO. I've known him for forever, since like 2017. So I've done work in the Decentralized Identity Foundation. If you guys don't know it, check it out. Really great work around decentralized identity. W3C, one of the venerable standards bodies of the internet. I've done work in standards around with mobility, with Mobi, with telcos in the Metro Ethernet Forum, and in the blockchain world. Why? Because bringing standards together is key to producing interoperable applications. Because right now, nothing interoperates. Basically.
I think that's really interesting, right? The lack of interoperability between chains.
Right. The only thing that chain here, chain that really doesn't matter, right?
When you get to a lot of interoperability between chains, have we not just got subnets again, and are we not back to the cloud?
I wrote a blog about like L1 bridges. It's called Chain Reaction. It's like L1 bridges, even though everybody loves IMHO, is a really bad idea. It's like
every
really
generation
bad
gets
idea.
to
But anyway,
reinvent the old stuff and change the names.
Irrespective of that, I think bringing the standards from DIF and W3C together with blockchain standards is key. That's why, for example, in the baseline protocol, we have a grant. And since you're developers out here, go to baseline-protocol.org. Look at the grants. There's a grant for an open source implementation that brings a digital asset wallet, for those of you out there who know, BIP39, BIP44, compliant with the universal wallet from W3C together into an open source implementation that integrates DIDs, which are basically a standard. If
they're
Mozilla
almost
and
there.
so forth could get their out of their verifiable credentials, right? Together with public key cryptography and blockchain standards together into one thing. That is a wallet that is necessary, that doesn't exist, that will allow not only interoperability, but also, my friend, will enable legal compliance with real world standards, legal standards in this case, to prevent you guys from going to jail.
Look.
And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm looking. We have like 4 minutes. Otherwise, we could talk forever about a lot of
Q&A?
Yeah. Okay. Want to do some Q&A?
Anybody got a question?
Yes.
So I'm really curious about
No, there are standards that exist. You just need to combine them and build a reference implementation that combines them and keep it open source. Why? Why is open source so critical for this? So that everybody can adopt it, and then finally people can at least semi-interoperate and have at least an agreement on what an identifier is, what a credential is, right?
Yeah, and speaking of reference implementations, go to treetrunk.io and you should be able to find yourself to the repo with the EIP 4910 draft standard reference implementation. So again, a lot of developers in the room. It's an opportunity for you. We work for Joe Lubin's consensus mesh and R&D. We think that Tree Trunk's awesome. We're launching tomorrow. The launch party's tomorrow. Amazing artists like Nyla Hayes and Julie Pacino, Al Pacino's daughter, by the way. Interesting. If we didn't make it work for Julie, we were pretty sure her dad would introduce us to his little friend. So we made sure it was working well, and all of that is great. You should come and buy that art and make prints and make money from the reprints. But as developers, the more important thing, and the thing that matters to Joe and to the Ethereum or to the consensus R&D team, is that you build stuff that we never even thought of with Tree Trunk. It's all open source. It's all free for you to go and grab, just like the 721 was. And by the way, fun fact, 4910, which we didn't offer, we just got that number assigned to us. 7 times 7 is 49, and 7 plus 2 plus 1 is 10. So it's a numerically
only in a dev meeting, right? Only in a dev meeting.
What would be interesting, I would love to see, is like how could we make Tree Trunk work with Civic, right?
Tree Trunk.
I don't think it's
very
more
simple.
important to say that-
Baseline-protocol.org. Apply for the grant. Build the open source reference.
So that's what we should ask
implementation.
developers. Let's see
Well,
if we can do something
anybody
like
can
that
do
too.
it. Anybody can do it. By the way, there's money involved. It's not as if
Right.
It's
you
grants.
have to do it for free. It's an appreciable amount of money.
That's
So-
good.
Let me bring it back. We have a minute and a half to go, and something that I want to make sure doesn't get lost in all this. There's so many features and functions of 4910 and Tree Trunk, but something that may have gotten lost is the notion that once you mint, you can go ahead and transact with that NFT anywhere. We've made it so you can get a very small amount of code, almost like YouTube, planted on any web page, and now that web page has become a store for that NFT. Your wallet will synchronize with it, and then the landing page will ultimately be where the NFT resides in IPFS, IPNS. So this is probably one of the first, if not the first technology where you mint, and then you can go ahead and sell it anywhere. Yes,
I think
Andreas?
we have time for one more question. The lady in the back with the red hair. Yep. Sure. The security of the entire bridge chain for all the L1s, from Solana to Ethereum to Tron or what have you not, doesn't matter, is the weakest link is the origin chain. If Solana goes bust, everybody in that chain, every asset holder in that chain is screwed.
And then you run that recursively, so then you bridge to bridge to bridge.
Right.
It becomes mayhem, and right?
What you want to do, and we're out of time, but what you want to do, what is not a bad idea, is bridging between L2s, layer 2 solutions that are on the same L1. That is okay because they inherit the security properties. Between L1s, meh.
I've always been amused by the notion, oh yeah, you can be cross-chain, you can be blockchain agnostic, just use our blockchain in between.
Exactly. Oh,
Thank you very much.
One last thing. I know we're out of time. One last thing. Yes, Tree Trunk is running on Polygon. Right, and we are bridging. So, but at least it comes from Ethereum, which is very unlikely to go meh.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for coming here today for our panel. I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank NFT.NYC and Will and your team. Thank you very much for coming out today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
you.
Have a great night.